Hi gang, this is John White with the Luke 10 community, and I have the privilege today to share with you one of the most powerful concepts that help people learn how to facilitate groups in such a way that they become truly vibrant families of Jesus. And we're using the word facilitating in a way that's perhaps different than other people might be using this word. The word facilitating is used a lot these days, but we mean something very specific. When you facilitate a group, you are discipling the group as a group. And the reason this is so powerful is that if you do a good job of discipling the group will then disciple the members within the group. And a group is way more powerful, just immensely more powerful at discipling the individuals and caring for them than you will ever be as an individual. The group has way more resources and can do a great job of that if they learn how to do that, if they are well discipled. Another benefit of this is that this keeps group leaders from being burned out. If I'm discipling and caring for the members in a group, then all the pressure is on me and it's exhausting and people are worn out. Small group leaders burn out. But this concept that we'll talk about today is one that really keeps that from happening. It makes leading a group to be a real joy and a delight if you understand how to do this. So I'm going to share with you 4 steps in discipling a group, and we'll talk about 2 of them today, and then in my next video we'll cover the last 2. So the ones that we're talking about today are evaluating a group and seeing a group. So I want to unpack these ideas, but keep in mind the big idea is if you disciple the group will then disciple the individuals. The word disciple, care for, all those things are part of that. So step number 1, evaluate the group as a group. Now to evaluate, you need to know a couple of things. First of all, you need to know where you're going, what's the objective. You need to know where you are currently, and then how to get from here to there. So let's think first of all about where are we going with the group. Another way to say this is, what's the picture of a really healthy small group, house church? What exactly does that look like? We have to have a picture of that in our mind so that we know how to compare things. A great way to think about this is simply by using the one another's of Scripture. So throughout the New Testament, there's a whole bunch of these. Love one another, honor one another, teach one another, serve one another. These are group functions. And so the more that a group learns how to do these things, the healthier they become. So that's a grid that we can use. Might also be helpful at some point with your group to do a little exercise with them. You might say, take out a piece of paper, and I want you to write, first of all, about this question. What are the marks of a really healthy house church? Just write about that for 5 minutes, and then we'll talk about it. It's amazing how people instinctively, intuitively know what a good group is like. How do they function? And simply by going through that practice will really help your group to make progress in that direction. It begins to give them a good picture of where you're going as well. That's the first step, is getting a picture of where we're going. What does the ideal look like? Then the second part of this is to think about, okay, where are we currently? How do we assess or evaluate the current level of health in this group? And there again, you might involve the group in this process. The second question would be, so where are we right now? What do you think are the strengths and the weaknesses of our group as we currently exist? Just doing that exercise with the group can be tremendously helpful with the group. This also then allows us to think developmentally. This is a key mark of any skilled facilitator or discipler of groups, thinking developmentally. Remember earlier on we had 2 simple equations that we're suggesting that if you know these 2 things, you know almost everything there is to know about house churches. Very simple. The first equation is church equals family. The second equation follows from that, and that is that leaders equal parents. I always have to say, in the best sense of the word. If we were to sit down and make a list of the qualifications or qualities of really healthy leaders or really healthy parents, almost everybody can do that. Even if you didn't grow up in the greatest of families, you kind of, again, instinctively know what a really healthy parent looks like. And the same thing is true for leaders of house churches. So having a picture of that allows us to think developmentally. So developmentally means that, first of all, as you think about children, children go through developmental stages. And wise parents are aware of that. And it means then that parenting is not static, but it's dynamic. That means that parenting is always changing based on the developmental stage of that child. So when kids are younger, leadership or parenting looks like doing more telling and directing. But little by little by little, a wise parent is always moving towards a place where your kids are growing up and you're doing more asking and listening. So it's always adapting. The same thing is true for a really wise discipler of a group. We get a clear picture of where this group is developmentally and adapt our leadership to that. So a group that's first starting out, I'm going to do more telling and directing and teaching about things. But then little by little, I'm going to give more work, more responsibility to the group. So what are some other things we might be looking for as we evaluate a group? Well, if I'm coaching a house church leader, I'm going to ask questions like, well, how long has this group been functioning? Tell me something about the history, what's happened in the history of this group. How big is the group? What's the makeup of the group? Men, women, children, what's the ratio there? Are they more older people, younger people, a mix of the two? What's the spiritual maturity of the group? There's all kinds of questions that help us understand the current condition of the group. Now, the reason it's important to evaluate or assess the group is it allows us to put into practice two statements. These two statements are invaluable in discipling the group. So here's the first one. For your group, do as little as possible for them, but as much as necessary. So you have to figure out what is necessary, how much is needed in this group. So as little as possible, but as much as necessary. Sometimes it means you're going to do a whole lot. Sometimes you're going to do hardly anything, depending on where the group is. A second statement is kind of similar to it. Maybe it's a corollary to it. And it goes like this. Never do anything for your group, your church, that they are capable of doing for themselves. That is like a brilliant statement, but it implies that we have a good sense of what the group is capable of. If a situation comes up and my evaluation is, I don't think they're capable of handling this, I'll help them. On the other hand, if I think they can handle it, I'll give them some space to go and try it and see what they learn. So those are two critical statements in this process. So the first big step is evaluating the group. Where is the group? The second step in this process is see the group as a group. Now, that may seem like kind of an obvious statement. I mean, we all kind of see things, but the fact is, especially as Americans, we're very individualistic and we tend to see individuals in the group. If you're talking to your husband or your wife after the group, you know, how to go today, you tend to talk about, well, Sam did this and Sally did this and Susie did that and so on. And we're not as skilled at seeing how the group is functioning. A couple of words that help me with this are the words organism and system. Organism, sort of an organic word, and we think about an organism. It could be an amoeba, it could be a larger organism, an animal, a human, and we think about how is the overall organism functioning together? How are all the parts working together? What's the overall health here? So seeing that, and then system is a good word too. Seeing the house church as a system that is all working together, and what does that look like? So using those words to see the group. Sometimes when I'm training people on how to be a facilitator, it's sort of a practice session. Have everybody sitting in a circle. Okay, this is now a house church. And then I'll ask one person, Sally, would you stand up and I want you to go stand over there against the wall several feet away from the group. Why are you doing that? Because it forces you to look at the group. A facilitator is a part of the group, yes, but in another sense, they have to kind of mentally stand outside the group. Obviously, if it's your real house church, you're not gonna physically move someplace, but mentally, I want to encourage people to kind of mentally stand outside of the group, back up from the group, so that they can see the bigger picture of what's going on. Now, I think Paul addresses this idea of seeing in 1 Timothy 3. He's talking about leader of a church, and he uses the word in the English, overseer. The Greek of it is very interesting, and the Greek word is episkopos, from which we get episcopal, Episcopalian. Compound Greek word. The root word is skopos, and that just simply means to see or notice. We get the word microscope or telescope from that word. And then the prefix is the word epi. It means over or above. So a leader, just from the very descriptive word for a leader, is one who looks over the group, who sees the larger picture. Seeing is a critical component of the leader. That's interesting. In verse 5 of that chapter, 1 Timothy 3, Paul says this, another one of the qualifications. He says, if a person to be qualified to be a leader of a church, they must manage their own family well. If you can't manage your family well, what makes you think you could manage the church of God? And it's interesting, in both those places, Paul is talking about groups. He doesn't say manage the individuals in your family, although obviously do, manage, disciple, train, care for, but he says manage the group called family. And then he says that enables you, or it's a good predictor of whether you can then manage a group called church. The family is, in a sense, a training ground for this whole idea of discipling a group. That's pretty cool insight there. Now, one of the places that you can help your house church grow in their capacity to see well, because again, we want not only the facilitator to evaluate and see, we also want the group to be growing in their capacity to evaluate and see as well. We recommend all house churches at the end of the meeting have what we call a closing round. So as the leader, I might say to the group, questions like these. There are different ways you can ask the questions, but one way you can ask them, the group, is, what did you see today in our group? What happened today? Where did you see the Lord at work? What did you see in terms of how the group functioned well? And sometimes you give them the right for a couple of minutes so they can kind of process their thoughts, especially good for introverts. And then we're going to do a round. We're going to go around the circle, and everybody can kind of say what it is that they saw. Now, there are two things that happen there. First of all, when I ask the question, everybody in the group starts thinking about, oh, what did I see? And so that helps people learn. The second thing that happens is, as they listen to what other people saw, they learn. Oh, I didn't see what Joe saw over there. That's a great insight. I'm going to keep my eyes open for that in the future. So doing a closing round is a great way to train the group to begin to see better, develop their eyesight for the group. So let me give you one example of how this might work out. Next week, in the next video, I'm going to give you a lot more examples, but let's just take one example of this idea of discipling the group and what that might actually look like. So imagine that I'm the leader, I'm the facilitator of the church today, and as church is progressing, I notice that one of the group members, we'll call her Susie, seems upset. I can tell that she's just on the verge of tears and something's going on there. Now, if I'm discipling or caring for individuals in the group, I would say, so Susie, looks like something's going on. What's happening, and do you want to share about that? But if I'm discipling the group, it looks different. It looks like this. First of all, I'm going to watch and see. Does anybody in the group notice what's going on with Susie? If they do, great. That's the mark of a healthy group. If they don't, I'm going to say something like this. And by the way, I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is going to be a great learning opportunity for the group. Now remember, if you ask the question, when do kids learn more? When do kids learn more? When they make a bad choice or a good choice? Well, the answer is usually they make more. They learn more if they make a bad choice, if we help them and help them process that. Hopefully not a really destructive bad choice. But and same thing with a group. Let's say they don't see Susie. So I'm going to say, in the middle of the group, I might say, so can we just stop for a second and kind of process on what do we see going on in the group? Let's just take a minute and kind of share, what do you see going on in the group? At that point, somebody might notice Susie. Great, if they do. If they don't, here's the next step. Notice the progression of this. I might say, so one of the things I've noticed, and that's a word that I'm going to use a lot, notice. I'm going to be modeling for the group, noticing things. I've noticed that Susie seems upset. I'm not sure what's going on with her, but it seems like there's a lot of emotion there. And I'm going to say, so you guys want to check in with her and see what's going on. I don't tell them what to do, but I ask a question. Again, they're going to have to think, oh, do we want to check in with Susie? Well, yeah, of course we do. We love her. We care about her. And so, Susie, what's going on? And then I'm going to watch how the group cares for her. They might do a great job. They might not do a great job. And there's some groups, frankly, that are scared of emotions. They don't want to go there. And so that's a pretty immature group. Other groups, maybe the way they relate to Susie is they start talking about themselves. Well, I felt that way one time, and here's what I did, and all the rest. I'm going to watch the process, and I'm going to coach them in that if they need coaching. Now, at the end of that house church, I'm also going to make sure that's part of the closing round. So we go around the group. I'm going to hope that somebody noticed what we did with Susie, how the group cared for her, what they did a good job on. And if they didn't notice it, again, I'm going to coach them. I'm going to ask the question. So what did you see going on with the group and with Susie today? Remember this great, this is a priceless comment. I learned it from Kent Smith. I shared it a couple of weeks ago with you guys. I just think this is gold. He said, we learn nothing from experience. We only learn as we reflect on our experience. So one of the things that a great discipler of a group does is they help the group reflect on their experience. What happened here? Why did it happen? What do we learn from this and all of that? So that's the beginning. This week, I'd like you to be thinking about those two things and try it out in your group, your house church. So do some evaluating, maybe do some writing, maybe listening to the Lord, maybe ask the Lord, how does he evaluate your group? You know, very interesting, one last comment here. Throughout Scripture, there's all kinds of group talk, right? One of those places is in Revelation 2 and 3, where it's talking about the 7 churches. And the first one is the church in Ephesus. And Jesus says to that church, not to individuals in the church, he says, I know about your works. I know that you work hard and you persevere. What was Jesus doing? He was evaluating that church. So that's something that we want to learn how to do as well. So do some thinking, praying, listening, writing on your church, your small group this week. Where are they? Developmentally, where is that group? And if your group has a meeting, practice kind of mentally standing apart from the group and see what you notice. A lot of times I'll even take notes on that, just kind of quietly to myself. I'll notice what the group is doing. Next week, the next video, we'll talk about the next steps 3 and 4 of how to disciple a group. But I'm excited about this. I think this is such a powerful tool. I pray that this tool, this practice will literally spread throughout the Luke 10 community. And the result will be increasingly vibrant, I love the word vibrant, pulsing with life, vibrant families of Jesus. May that be so, Lord.